And now, after years of planning, sweating, and going broke, here is the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
I left the media.
Why they would give this man a podcast is anyone's guess.
Then there is what could only be a bizarre coincidence or something else.
Welcome to the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Country music and fine moonshine. Finally, a podcast that lets it all hang out.
Let's level with America.
Got your boots? Ready for some whiskey?
These boots are made for walking.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
And now, the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Hey everyone, Jim here, Boots and Whiskey Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the show. We're at 349 with this one. We are actually doing a double shot this week. You're getting one today and you're going to get one tomorrow with Travis Bolt. But today's episode is with our dear friend, Aubrie Sellers. Aubrie was on the show not long ago. Full transparency, I think it was like August of last year, maybe even July. I don't know, end of July, early August, whatever. And we just had her on then just to shoot the shit. But she has an album coming out this Friday. Go pre-save it, check it out. There's also a podcast that goes with it. We get into all of that detail and more in this episode. I do want to kind of put a disclaimer on this episode, and not a bad one, just one in general. We talk a lot about mental health and how to take care of yourself and all these things and things we've both gone through. Whatever the case may be, right? So I talk a lot from a personal experience. There's things I don't go into too much detail, I don't think. I talk about stuff that still bothers me, and how it's gone, but nothing bad, like just if you know me on a personal level, this is just how I try to what's the word, whatever. I try to break shit down, right? Like, because I'm a little, it takes me a minute, and that's okay. So yeah, there's a lot of that in this episode, and it was very cleansing. It was very much a needed conversation. You'll notice that this is probably one of the longer episodes we've had in a while, but it was worth it. Every moment of this episode is, if you're listening to this and listening to this with intent, it's going to fly by. I promise you. So Aubrie Sellers here, album Friday, podcast is out now, I believe. I'm going with it. Check her out. She's a gem. She does all kinds of cool shit. If you don't know from the last episode, she has her own solo stuff. She does, sorry, brain fart. She does backup for Parker McCollum. She has a pretty famous mom that we talk about a lot in this episode, but we never name her. Well, maybe I'll name her at the end, but that's it. So sit back, relax, enjoy. If you're chilling in the car, keep pay attention. And that's that. So enjoy. Aubrie Sellers is here. Thanks for being here, guys. Cheers.
So I'll try to keep her down.
That's fine. I can make sure there's no background noise when it comes to it.
Okay, every time I do anything, here she is. She emerges as soon as I start talking.
Of course, that's how it is every time.
And I try to put her out, and she's like, nope, and she runs under the bed.
Yep. So how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Busy,
Yes, same. Very busy.
Yeah.
I just looked at the calendar last night. I was like, oh, my record comes out in a week.
Yeah. So how, did we talk about this last time? Was this even on the radar last time?
I don't think so. I don't think we were. I think it was kind of early, so I wasn't talking about it yet.
Gotcha. Because when did we talk? August?
Maybe. It was a while ago.
It was. It was right before you guys were here for George Strait. So that, yeah. When the hell was that? That had to have been August.
Don't ask me. I literally don't know. You can ask me sometimes what city I'm in when I'm there, and I don't know.
That's fair. So how do we come up with a whole album out of nowhere?
Well, it was not out of nowhere. I've
Well,
been working on it for a
obviously.
couple of years.
Obviously. But
But yeah, a lot of the time it's the behind the scenes stuff that has to happen to figure out who's going to put it out and all that, and when is it going to come out, and so yeah, I've been working on it for a couple of years, and it's like a concept record, so there's a podcast that goes with it. There's a lot of moving parts for
really?
this record. Yes.
No shit.
Yeah, it's
So
called Attachment Theory.
now, did
Um,
you, when the
Go ahead.
last time we talked, were you already were you working on this?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
was working on it. And some of the episodes, even for the podcast, I had recorded, but everything was very much like planning stages, and I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to be released and the timing, especially with the podcast, because I've never done that before. You do a
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure yours
And,
is way more in depth and detail than mine is. That's
well, mine's very different because it's just me. So I don't have guests or
right.
anything. It's just me, each episode talking about relationships. It's a relationship podcast. So
Okay, so we didn't get into it last time for a lot of reasons, but like, I'm obvious. I'm just gonna go on a limb here and say that it was a bad situation.
what do you mean? A what situation?
A bad situation. Like when we're talking about, like,
That inspired it?
yeah.
Um, well, yeah, the record and the podcast are both about relationships. Obviously, so basically I wanted to do the podcast as more of a concrete exploration of like the subject behind each song,
Sure.
So attachment theory, for those who aren't familiar, is kind of a psychological perspective on why we are attracted to certain things and behave certain ways in relationships. And a lot of that has to do with our relationship with our caregivers or parents when we're growing up. So I won't like give you the whole spiel, but that's like the overarching idea. And so the record is a concept record because all the songs are about relationships. And yes, it's definitely born out of heartbreak, and it can be a little dark at times, but it's also inspiring in moments. And I think hopefully can be really cathartic for people to listen to that are going through similar things. And too, like on TikTok and social media in general, I feel like attachment theory has become a real trending thing because it's so helpful to people to learn about it. And really helps people heal their relationships. So I just wanted to kind of share everything I learned. I'm not a therapist. I am not
Right.
an expert, but it's something I like to talk about with my friends. And so that's kind of what the podcast is like. It's like sitting down with one of your friends, discussing relationships and discussing attachment theory. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that because, like I've gone, I'm trying to be better. We're not putting all my shit out there, but like at the same time, it's hard because of the kind of person I am, right? But like I think therapy is great, right? I think everybody at some point in their life should go through it for whatever reason,
Amen.
right? But I also don't feel like it should. I'm going to probably get a lot of backlash on this, and maybe you'll disagree with me, but I don't think it should be like a long-term thing. Right? Like you shouldn't be in therapy like right now for something for the rest of your life.
Hopefully not. Yes, I think hopefully effective therapy will, like I've been in therapy in my life. I'm not in therapy right now.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully it helps you heal. And I will say too, like something I learned and I talk about, I think it might be on this week's episode, but I talked about a class I took with a creative arts therapist, which is a totally different kind of therapy. So there's the traditional like talk therapy that we're all familiar with. And then creative arts therapy is this it's a little more woo woo, but it's like she has like creative exercises that bring out some of your like subconscious stuff. And so there's like somatic therapy, which is like about movement and your body, and exercise is even a form of that sometimes, like if you're feeling like distilling it, it's like if you're feeling, like you need some energy or you're feeling down, you can go dance, like,
Sure,
dance around songs you like, like there's other kinds of therapy that I think are effective and can be helpful too. So talk therapy isn't the only way, but I agree with you. I mean, hopefully the goal is to not be in therapy
right.
for the rest of your life.
I don't say that to knock anybody that's constantly in therapy. I really don't,
Yeah.
because like there's a lot of arguments that I should probably go back, but so there was a time last year, like right before you and I talked, where I was doing both talk therapy and EMDR. Have you ever done EMDR?
I have, yeah.
Holy shit, right? Like I honestly tell everybody, like, that's how you should start, because
Yeah.
like that will literally, I mean, it did for me, and I'm pretty stubborn, right? That broke me down to a point where I was like, oh, like I was seeing a lot of me that I may not have prior to that.
Absolutely.
And it's like, like it was just really helpful. Like it really got down to the core of it. And it made a lot of things in my life make sense and be like, oh, this is where I fucked up. This is where I didn't fuck up. Maybe I'm not the problem. Maybe I'm not the only problem in this situation, and so on and so forth. Right. So man, I had a great EMDR therapist that, held my feet to the fire and with accountability. And it literally, it sounds corny, but it was life-changing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean too. I mean, that's not straight talk therapy, that's like an exercise. And I think from what I understand, and this could be wrong, I'm not as well versed in EMDR, but I think that they don't even fully understand the full scope of why it works the way it does. It just does. So there are still so many mysteries of kind of what works and why it works. But I've done that as well. And it's crazy just the things that pop in your mind when you're going through the exercise that you never would have even thought about.
Right.
And I think too, a lot of people think of trauma like, oh, trauma, it has to be something like this horrible event that happens to you, like physical violence or these types of things. And I think when you do EMDR, you learn that a lot of moments that you wouldn't even expect affected you in ways that you didn't know. So,
right.
So I think, EMDR is great. That's awesome that you did it.
Yeah. And what's so funny, and I'm probably like the biggest hypocrite when I say shit like this, but like I am like all about mental health and like getting any sort of help you need whenever you need it. Right. But I hate those words like trauma and like all
the
of
buzzwords. Oh, I totally get it. And it's overused.
I cannot, they're overused. Right. And it's like, especially like in today's day and age where it's like, you see some of this younger generation and they use these words like they've been through anything. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, you can go through stuff pretty bad.
Yeah, you can, sure. But like, when a 16-year-old is
totally,
like,
no, I totally get what you're saying.
Right.
And it is, and I totally get it. And I do think it can be overused. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like one thing I learned when I was like going through anxiety stuff is like, and I can't remember, I'm going to not remember the exact name of the type of therapy because there's a couple different types of therapy people use, like CBT and some different therapy types. One of them, I want to say it was like, it started with an A. Anyway, acceptance and commitment therapy. I think it's ACT. Part of what I read about that was not identifying as your anxiety. And I think that's a big issue that we're having now with stuff is people putting these labels on themselves. Like I have this and I have this and I have 14 different disorders. And and all that. And the truth is we all get anxious. Every person gets anxious. It's just to what degree are you experiencing anxiety right now? Is it an excessive amount that's hurting your life right now? Or is it, a normal amount or,
Sure.
So I think that's a better way to look at it maybe is instead of, identifying as all of these things, rather just look at these are human things that we all experience. And maybe just like, it's kind of like everything's better in moderation. Like, just like you can eat too much or do all these things that are unhealthy, but it's not unhealthy if you're having it a normal amount. So, I think that's kind of what therapy for me is about, is like bringing everything down to a manageable normal level.
Now we talked at length about a lot of things last time, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure I don't remember everything correctly. But you had mentioned about being in therapy like your whole life, right? Now, were you in therapy as a kid?
No. I wasn't in therapy my whole life, but I started. Oh, okay. I started in high school, probably. When I started having like panic attacks. So that was something that just kind of came out of the blue for me, in a way, although as you've seen, like through EMDR, you realize maybe you were more anxious as a kid than you thought you were, but, but I didn't have panic attacks or anything like that when I was younger. So, when I started experiencing that later in high school was when I started to go to therapy and try to figure that out. And then, that was, I went, for a good chunk of time, and there were times when I didn't go at all. So I kind of, like you said, like I would go when I was kind of going through it, and then, find some tools, and then maybe something else hits and you're anxious again. And so, it was kind of a process of
Yeah.
just finding what works. And I lived in California for a few years, so like I went to a different person out there, and you just learn different things from different people. And so yeah, most of that was talk therapy, but I did some of the stuff we talked about. And then I've read a lot of books. I'm a big reader. And there's a lot of stuff you can do on your own too. I mean, there's so many resources now online and everywhere else that you can kind of do a lot of that yourself. So journaling has been a huge thing. I've been doing that a lot, and even used to do it more when I felt more like I needed more of an emotional release. Thankfully, I'm doing pretty well now. So I find that when I'm doing well, I don't journal as much. I don't write songs as much.
Right. No, no, now I can't help but to I hate the way I'm going to ask this question, because I personally don't buy into it, right? Because I think a lot of mental health stuff is stuff we've bought into, right? Where it's like somebody says something and it's like, oh, must be the way, I must be this way because of this situation or whatever, right? Now, did you find that, as we talked about last time, like you didn't grow up in a quote unquote normal situation, right? Now, do you think that's part of it? And I hate to say like, oh, well, this is your mother's fault, because like because I don't believe that, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
I think our parents, especially the generation our parents are, because you're not that much younger than me, that like our parents did the best they could with what they had, right?
Totally.
And in your situation, your parents did the best they could in the situation they were in. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
when you're a kid, your mother's on top of the world. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can't imagine living like that, right? Let alone being a girl. Like, and I don't, I hate the way I make that sound, right?
No,
But
I know what you mean. Yeah,
boys and girls are very different emotionally on all spectrums, right?
totally.
So I can't imagine being a girl living like that, let alone a boy living like that, right? So like, do you think, and in your process, do you kind of, I hate even saying it like this, but do you blame that situation on that?
No,
Or
no, I
oh,
don't. I don't blame my parents for sure. I think there's just some things that come along with growing up around this industry, but also, as a creative person who's a child of two creative people,
right,
um, creative people, I think, are more sensitive naturally, so I'm probably
sure,
more prone to anxiety and prone to those things.
right,
I actually had a therapist one time tell me it's like sometimes you have to look at the gifts that come along with. So I'm very sensitive and very anxious, but the gifts that come along with that are I'm very creative,
right,
so it's kind of like a double-edged sword or whatever, however you want to put it. But like, so I don't blame them, but part of it's probably genetic. Part of it's probably that, we were traveling a lot. There was a lot
right,
of, I don't want to say instability, but I mean, in a way,
right. In a way, there
um,
was.
yeah, like, um, and so, yeah, I think all of that, and, it's just a weird dynamic to grow up with a parent who's getting a lot of attention and their attention is scattered. And, there's just weird things you see about how like human behavior as far as how they act around, how just people act around people who are famous,
Hmm.
all of that probably fed into it, and
Sure.
I think it's important to understand where that comes from. But also, I think the failure of a lot of talk therapy can be, and probably you were kind of getting at this, but just because you understand where it came from doesn't fix it. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Oh
So
yeah,
that's why
absolutely.
I think a lot of the somatic stuff and a lot of the tools you can use through therapy can help you fix that on a nervous system level, and also fix your own self-talk. That was a huge thing for me with anxiety, was learning how to, actually, I'll show you something.
She laughs.
A therapist recommended that I get a picture of myself. I've had this for a long time, when I was little. This is a like an inner child thing. So this is me as a child. She was like, go print it out, get a frame, and you're going to learn how to positive self-talk by talking to like the little you.
Right.
And that was easier for me to do than as an adult, because as an adult, if we do something wrong or whatever, we can be really hard on ourselves and be like, you need to just get it together, you know?
Right.
But if a child was telling you that, you would be very warm and empathetic and loving towards them.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge helpful exercise for me in getting my anxiety under control and being more gentle with myself, because that was I was very, and I'm like too, I mean, I grew up with a lot of pressure, so I probably am like a high achiever and put a lot of pressure on myself. So that helped tone that down a little bit.
Right. You know, and like, cause like, I think about you a lot, and like, that sounds weird and creepy, but like, it's not how I mean it. But like, you know, I talk to so many people, right? And like, you're one of the few that like always have stood out to me because of
thank you.
the way you grew up, the just, you know, where you are now, the whole 9 yards, right? Now, I can only imagine that you must have some sort of, even though you've done a lot of this on your own, you know, like we can't, regardless of how hard you've worked, right, to be where you are, right, there's still a level of, whether people know it or not, you know, this is gonna sound like I'm negating your talents, but
I think I already know where you're going.
But like, you know, it helps that, you know, mom also was in the industry so you could get a grasp of it and where to go. And, you know, you have maybe a little bit of an upper hand, right? Whether or not you've used mom along the way, and I don't really think you have, but I mean, it helps, right? It's not like a, you know, it's not like I wonder how I got here, you know, but like, you know, you're very successful on your own and standing on your own 2 feet. And like I told, you know, like last Mother's Day when you posted about mom, and I was like, who are you? What? Like, I would have never have known. And like, you keep it very, I don't want to say under wraps, but like, if you don't know, you don't know. Right. And I think that's wonderful for your career and everything like that. But while you're going through this, right, you have your own stuff going on. You have the stuff with Parker going on. You know, you have a lot of things, right? At any point, there's going to be points where, from the start of this till now, where there's a level of imposter syndrome, regardless of how hard you've worked. Right? Now, like, is that a big part of this? Big part of it too?
Yeah, I'm never comfortable. Like, you know, like,
right.
I mean, it's just, especially, and maybe because of my personality type is a big reason. I mean, I'm very introverted. And so, you know, anything where I'm playing shows or in front of people, I always feel a little bit uncomfortable, because I feel like this is like almost, I don't want to say against my personality type, but it's the opposite of what you would expect.
Of course.
For someone who's introverted. But like you said, I mean, a lot of, I think the way it may have helped me to grow up with parents in the business is maybe not the way people think. I feel like when I hear people talk about that, and it can be this way for some people, where their parents like directly go get them gigs or, you know, that kind of stuff. It wasn't so much that as being able to be around the business, like you said, and just see how it works. I think that was like and I think I've thought about this with actors who don't have parents who are famous, but they start when they're really young. You'll notice like most of the superstar actors started when they were very young. And I think that's because it gives them a leg up, because they've had so much longer in the industry to build a career and learn about the industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see that being an advantage just from the business side of things, of how things work, just knowing like what kind of people you need on your team, and, you know, knowing who those specific people are in Nashville, you know. And so that has definitely been helpful. But like you said, I have tried to keep it separate as much as possible. And I do, you know, no shade to my parents, because I love them to death, but it does make me happy when people sometimes don't know, because, you know, it gives me some validation that people connected with my music, you know. So, yeah.
Right. You know, because it's like but like, even like on the flip side, even in like this genre, right, you see a lot of, and I even hate this word, but you see a lot of Nepo babies, right? That are, you know, still doing it on their own with no real help from mom or dad, whoever it may be, right? Because it's like, you still, at the end of the day, right? Even if your mother was like, here's all of the contacts, here's all the doors open, like, don't fuck it up, right?
Yeah.
Like, you still have to have a level of talent, right? Like, you can't just go out there and be like, well, I'm so and so's daughter, so here I am, right?
Right.
Like, I'm going to be on the top of the world, right? And
Right.
like, you see that a lot, because there's a lot of kids in your situation that, unless you pay attention to like independent country music, like, you wouldn't know who the hell these people are. You know?
Right. I mean, I might be in that category. Like, I'm not, that's kind of the thing though, is like, whether if I do have some huge mainstream success at some point, people will definitely say it was because of this or that, and will not even know that I've been putting out records for 10 years,
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so it's like you said, nothing is a guarantee,
Right.
even being, maybe honestly, maybe embracing that and like using that, I guess, more could have pushed me further along. I don't know, but I've never really wanted to do that, because I felt like then I wouldn't feel like I did anything on my own. Like,
Right.
so
Right.
so yeah, but like you said, nothing's a guarantee. Even if your parents are famous, it's not
Right.
like, oh, now you're a superstar. Like,
Right. I mean, look, perfect example is like Garth Brooks's daughter, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's in the industry, but I mean, she doesn't use Brooks's, Garth's last name.
Mhm.
She's doing it all on her own, and unless you knew who she was, you would never know.
Yeah.
Right. And like, talking about, superstardom, right? Like, she could have used that to her advantage.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. My ADHD kicked in real bad while I was thinking about this. Did we talk about this last time? Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a half sister, so I hate to call her that, like it negates it, but we have a different dad.
Right. And that's
yes,
fine.
I have
But
one
like,
sister.
so how is she anything? This is gonna sound bad. Is she anything like you? Like, does she have that creativeness too, or
Absolutely.
did she dodge that bullet?
No, she's great. So it's interesting because my dad is a singer-songwriter. Her dad is a producer and a publisher. And so he's my stepdad. And so she grew up around, I mean, we were both in the studio a lot, but I grew up with like kind of two singer-songwriter parents. So and she actually sings and plays guitar and everything too, but she's an engineer. So she's been working in the studio, working on people's records. And so I don't know if she'll do her own music at some point. I hope so. She's very talented, but it's cool to see her go into kind of more of that, because I think she was around like the studio and production, since birth. So
Right.
she loves doing that, and she's great at it. She worked on Parker McCollum's record, and she's worked on
This
a bunch
last
of other
one?
projects. Yep.
Yeah.
She worked on my second record, so she's great.
Does she ever use the card? Do you know who my mother is card?
No.
No.
She's even more introverted than I am.
Really? I find that so fascinating, because like, I hear it all the time with artists, and they're like, I hate, the spotlight of this, right? Like,
Right.
I just want to play my songs and that's it. And like,
Yeah.
it's so mind blowing to me, because like, me being me, like, I'm very extroverted. Like, I want to talk to everybody. I want to be, I want to be the center of attention, and I'll be the first to admit it. I can't believe in your industry and how you do it, that wouldn't be the way you are.
Well, I mean, there are people who are like that. Not every artist is
Sure.
introverted, obviously, but I do think like the more creative artsy types tend to be introverted, and there are types who are more entertainers, and
Yeah.
I think they tend to be more extroverted. I don't think you have to be an entertainer to entertain, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
you don't have
absolutely.
to just singing your songs can be entertaining, but some people like love that and thrive on that, and they're like, the stage is where I want to be. I did some acting growing up, and I was in a musical a few years ago in LA, and so I do love that, but that's much easier for me because it's, not me.
Yeah.
It's a character. So I find that like a lot of introverts who do performance, and you'll hear this, like Beyonce even has like an alter ego that she uses when she's on stage. It's kind of like puts herself in that person's shoes, so she doesn't have to. You don't have to feel like everyone is looking at me. Everyone
Right.
is judging me. Like Um, but yeah, thankfully my stage fright has gotten better, but acting always made that easier for me because it was like you could put a wall, like a little character between everyone and yourself if you're
Right.
physically in front of people.
Now, do you how different is it for you when you're like when you're doing your own thing on stage and playing your own music to like when you're backing up Parker? Like how what is there a different mindset you put yourself in?
Well, I mean, just naturally, I'm singing backgrounds a lot of the time. Sometimes I sing my own stuff with him too, but it's more comfortable for me. I've really enjoyed it, to be honest. I think it's really fun. Now, I will say, I hate to talk like this because I don't want people to think like, oh, if I go see her show, she's gonna be like boring and scared. You wouldn't be able to tell if you were seeing me perform. This is all internal, but that's also one of the reasons I love, and I have some shows coming up in April with my friend Jade Jackson, who I did a side project with called Jackson Sellers. And we have shows in April where we're both playing full sets, and then we're doing some Jackson Sellers songs at the end. And we didn't get to play a ton of those shows when we put that record out because it was like on the tail end of COVID still. And so that'll be really fun because those few shows we did do, I really had fun because it's like you're sharing the stage, and that's similar to what it's like being out with Parker. It's like sharing the stage and really more him in that case, obviously. But I really enjoy that because it feels like it's a fun way to play music without the pressure of kind of carrying the whole thing on your shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can now I was thinking about this the other day, right? Because the last time I saw you was at Gillette, and you guys are playing pretty much during the daytime, right? Now, obviously, you're not blind, so you can see, everything around you. Like, does that make it a little more intimidating than when you're playing like an arena show and it's dark and
Absolutely. And also, like, the smaller the show, the more intimidating. You would think it would be the opposite,
really?
but yes, like, because you can see, I mean, in a small, like, I just played at the listening room lately. I just played at the listening room the other day. And if you don't know, in Nashville, that's like a venue where writers come and do writers' rounds, kind of. And everyone's sitting at tables, and you can 100% see everybody in the venue.
Right.
I mean, there's people right up on the stage sitting and just kind of staring,
Yeah.
and like Parker makes fun of people like if they're yawning and stuff in the front row, but it's like these listening room type venues have always been like in some ways harder for me because you can see every single expression, and I've thankfully learned how to deal with it better. But when I was first starting, I was so nervous just to be on stage, and then to have that layer on top of it of like, that person is not smiling, what are they thinking?
Right. Right.
Whereas when you're playing a big arena and it's dark, like you said, you can't, we can see some people in the pit, but yeah, it's a lot, like you can kind of just perform and be a little freer, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always thought about that where it's like, when you do those massive stadium shows and, you're the direct support or, right before direct support, and it's like, it's the middle of the day, and it's like, I think I would shit my pants. Like
It's funny too, because I feel like that slot I'm used to playing as an opener, but Parker, where he is in his career, I mean, he's headlining arenas and selling them out,
Right.
So it's kind of funny to like play those shows with him because it's like he's already so big,
Right. Right. Like I thought that was funny too, where it was like, like realistically you have three massive acts in one. Parker, I mean this to no disrespect to Parker, but like he can't sell out Gillette Stadium, I don't think, right?
Yeah.
He might be able to, but I don't, right?
Stan.
Like he's getting there.
Yeah.
But and then Stapleton, who could all by himself, and then George Strait, and it's like, come on, like
I know.
Even if you don't follow country music to the letter, like that's a huge show. It's a
Absolutely.
huge show.
I mean, I was super excited to do those because I've opened for Chris a lot myself, but I've never opened for George. Not really like this, not really a musical fit necessarily, but I grew up going out with George a lot because my mom opened for him a lot. So I knew some of the crew and people that I hadn't seen since I was little, so that was really fun. And then obviously, like I said, I opened for Chris a lot and know him and his wife very well. So those were super fun shows to do. I would love to do more of those.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to know more about where this album came from, right? Where at what point were you like, this is how I want to present this in this way?
Yeah, well, when I wrote, it was organic. Like I was writing these songs and finding that they all had a similar theme. And then when I wrote the title track, Attachment Theory, it's kind of when it clicked for me because, I thought like this could be the album title, and this is kind of what all these songs are that I'm writing about are kind of around this theme. Um, and I don't remember the moment when I had the podcast idea, but I know that it came out of a similar thing where it's like, not only is the music going to have this concept, but this is something that I love to talk about with my friends. I want to kind of be able to share that part of it with people as well. And it would be a really fun thing for me to do, first of all. And second of all, just it like excited me creatively to have both those things paired together. Because I haven't seen anyone do that. And I just thought it was an interesting concept. I know that like everybody has a podcast, but but it was kind of cool to have it just be a concept. Like it's not something I might do a podcast in the future, but it won't be this. Like this Attachment Theory Relationship podcast is attached to this record. Every episode is attached to one of the songs from the record. So it all kind of came together organically. And I think when I wrote Attachment Theory, that song kind of started getting in my brain, okay, this is actually like a whole concept record and project.
That's wild. That's great. Like, I don't think there's enough concept albums out there because, like, to me, when it's a concept album, it means more, right? It's not. You put it on and you have to. It almost forces you to listen to it all the way through.
Absolutely. That's the thing I've been saying too is like those are some of my favorite records that you put on and like they're very cohesive sonically and just like vibe wise, there's not as much on my other two records, like there were some super rockers and then some ballads, and this is a little more, it's not like one note. There's still, ups and downs, but it's a little more like cohesive vibe wise, I feel like in that way where you can sit down and listen to the whole thing. And like, if you're in this particular space, that's the time to listen to this record.
Right. Now, when you're writing these songs and putting them together, was it intentional? Or did it just so happen to be like, oh?
Yeah, I think it was like, well, all my songs come from a very personal place. So these were just things that I wanted to write about to be therapy for myself, essentially. Yeah. And then noticing like there's a pattern of these songs and what's happening in my life right now. And that's why because I didn't feel like writing about anything else at the time. I felt like writing about relationships.
Right.
Now,
when you are writing something like this, we talk about relationships, and whenever we talk about relationships, I think it's almost like we just assume it's like romantic relationships, right? But like we never talk necessarily about friendships being relationships with our parents, our kids, our whatever it may be. Like, is there a little bit of all of that in there, or is it just specifically about romantic relationships?
It's mostly a romantic thing, and so is the podcast. However, there is a little bit of that because, like you said, I mean, the song Alien Nation, which is the last track on the record, as well as a song Look Up, they're kind of about more general relationships, and Look Up is about looking up from your phone and paying attention and living in real life with the people around you who you love. And Alien Nation is kind of a fun, spacey song about just us all kind of feeling alienated and wondering like what's out there in the great beyond. So there's like some, connection to that too. But yeah, I will say like it's mostly relationship, like romantic relationships.
Are we gonna have to kick somebody's ass once we listen to this? Like,
I got it all out. I'm done with it now.
no,
I've been in,
that's that's the point.
and it's funny too because I've been, promoting the podcast and all this, and putting up like funny TikToks and memes about like avoidant attachment and all these different things. And I'm sure, from an outsider's perspective, it can be like, wow, are you like really going through it right now? And I'm like, no, I already went through it. Like, actually, I'm sharing this now to show you like funny things about what it's like to go through that. But I mean, I've been in a good relationship since the end of like 2020. What year is it? 2024. Yeah.
What year is it? Fair.
We're in a new year. I guess we're 3 months into it. But anyway. So I've been good on the relationship front for a minute.
Now let me ask you this, right? Now, does this person know that this is about them?
Yeah. The record? I thought you meant, does this person, I don't know what you're asking me. Does this person, well, it's not just one person. Okay. I will say, like, it's not like I wrote this whole album about this one person. It's more about,
this isn't all about Mark,
Yeah, like he's making everything about himself.
Right.
No, definitely like one relationship that I had kind of kicked it off, if you will.
Sure.
But there was a lot of self-exploration going on at the time, and so a lot of these things came from reflecting on multiple past experiences I've had, so it's not just like this was like a hate record for one person.
Right. That's fair. That's fair. You know what? I love that you say that, because it's like, I was talking about it with somebody else not too long ago about how we have artists in this industry, right? And I'm not saying that these relationships were other artists in the industry or whatever, but like we always seem to get like one side over another, right? And I'm not bashing you or anybody else, right? But it's so interesting that we always seem to get the female perspective, right? And I think I'm talking about this as from a guy perspective, right? But like, could you imagine, and I say this all the time, could you imagine Carly Pearce releases that record about Michael Ray, right? Could you imagine if he comes out and does the same exact thing? Like, I mean, his career
has that never happened? I don't know a lot about that situation, but I feel like it's probably happened with some other people.
Oh, I mean, I guess you could argue with Megan Maroney and Morgan Wallen, even though that apparently was never a thing.
I don't know anything about any of this celeb gossip, but I see what you're saying, though. I mean, I hate to put people in boxes, but yes, women are emotional and, are more relationship centric, I think, in general, if you want to like generalize. And so, so we definitely can get more of the female perspective on that.
Right.
But I hope on this, I tried to make it like, there's no like, I don't want to call it any like specific songs, but there's no like, like key in his car type songs or anything like that.
It's kind of like every Taylor Swift album for the last 20 years has been,
It's not like, that kind of stuff. It's more like, wow, there's a song called Delusional on the record where I talk about myself being delusional, in relationships. And it's meant to be more, I think, reflective and just sort of about healing rather than, a record about like, I've been scorned.
Right. And I guess that was my point, right? Because it seemed, we've all been in relationships, right? And like, I know that I've been in relationships where I look back and it's like, okay, these weren't great things, right? These conversations weren't great. These reactions weren't great. Yada, 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 yada. Right. And like I was saying earlier, but I also know me well enough that, how do I say this and not sound like an asshole? But there are moments, right? And I'm sure you could even reflect as a woman in this, like where like you're reflecting back and it's like, you're not the sole problem or the sole person to blame, but your actions or reactions or whatever were caused by X, Y, and Z, right? Whether they were good reactions, bad reactions, whatever, right? And like what I don't understand is why, as like a society, we can't. It doesn't seem like we can talk about that. Where it's like, well, you reacted this way, so this must be how you are, or who you are, or whatever. And it's like, well, you also didn't see the other side of the coin either, right? And like that's hard, especially when you have friends, parents, whatever, that everybody feels like they know the answer to all of why everything has happened, right? Like your parents and your best friends apparently already have a PhD in psychology, and they can say, well, so and so is an asshole, or so and so is just a bitch, or whatever, right? The list can go on forever, and it's like what's hard in those situations, right? And I've even found this personally, where it's hard to tell people things that have happened to you without some sort of reaction, especially because they weren't there for every ounce of it.
Totally. I think that's a very common experience.
Like,
yeah, I think that's a very common experience of like, yeah, even if you related something that happened to them, they wouldn't be able to see it in the context of everything because they weren't there for everything that happened.
Right.
I think that's a very common experience, and yeah, you can definitely make people look bad from the outside, that and not be sharing the whole story or whatever. But I think like it's really interesting because attachment, in the lens of attachment theory, let's say like you're more anxiously attached or avoidantly attached. It really depends on, even if you have like a baseline that you are, it depends on who you're in a relationship with, because if the person is extremely avoidant, you might become more anxious than you normally would be, and vice versa, and so it does depend on both people in the relationship. It's not just one, and nobody's ever 100% to blame. But no. I would say my like kind of opinion on this is like, you have to both be willing to do the work. And some people just are genuinely not even willing to do the exploration or the compromise required to have a healthy relationship. And that's a lot of the time when you end up having to walk away because it was basically one person making the effort.
Right. And and even in that, right? Like, I've had relationships where it's like things end badly, things end fine, it's just like, oh, high five, see you later, whatever. But it's like, I have also learned in the last year or so, it's like, I know now not to share anything with anybody, right? And I hate that, right? And it's not for any reason, right? And it's not, good or bad, but it's like, if I'm in a relationship or I get into a relationship or whatever, like, I don't need that relationship to fail or end or whatever, and then have a commentary on why it did. Like, well, we knew
from outside people,
outside,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
I can't stand that shit. I really can't. And like, like I've been in situations where my friends aren't saints and they have comments about everything, and like I just kind of like, okay, but like, yeah, you're getting my side of the story, right? And I try to be as open and honest about that, probably a little too open and honest about what happened, right? But like there's still another side.
Totally.
Right? And
yeah, and people usually aren't getting the full story.
They aren't,
maybe,
right? Like, and I don't, right? Like let's, again, probably a bad example, but like if you and I are in a relationship, like you're gonna give your friends your side of the story, I'm gonna give my friends and family my side. We might be giving them the same situations and whatever, like the stories could be pretty close to the same, but somewhere we're leaving out shit, right? Maybe not even like major things, right? Just like little things, right? And your side is going to be like, one thing or whatever, and my side is going to say other things, and it's like, to me it's unfair, you know, and maybe that's what I've learned from EMDR over the last year, you know, where it's just like the pettiness after a breakup or whatever, like it's human nature, but it's unfair.
I don't mind hearing people's opinions, but I also take them with a grain of salt, if that makes sense. So like when my friends say anything about, you know, oh, we thought this about him or whatever, I'm like, okay, it's interesting to hear like what their perspective is.
Right.
But at the same time, like you said, they weren't there for everything, so they don't know the whole story. And also, at the end of the day, like you're the one living in this relationship or not living in this relationship.
Right.
And, you know, I think my friends are pretty good about understanding, and I hope that I am with them as well. As like, I can give you my advice, but at the end of the day, this is your relationship. So if if I said, I think you should break up with that guy and then you don't, like, you know, that's your life to live. Like, I'm not, you know, and I'm not going to blame you for it because once again, I can't even give a full opinion because I wasn't there. I can only give you an opinion based on certain things, you know? So, yeah, I think, you know, if people are like 100% confident in their opinions on your relationship, then that's probably a red flag about them.
Right. You know, it's funny because it's like, you know, and then like you have those situations where it's like, oh, well, we never liked so-and-so or whatever. And it's like, no, is that why like every time they were around or this, that, and the other thing, like open arms and hugs and all, you know, like it's like you hated them that much through the whole situation that, you know.
That would scare me because I'd be like, well, were you not being honest with me about what you thought about him?
Right. And like, you know, I'm with you, right? I've always been a big proponent where it's like, if I'm in a relationship with somebody, right, my relationship with them is that it's just them and myself, you know, like I'm not marrying your friends or being in a relationship with your friends or your parents or this, that, and the other thing. Like, obviously those things come with the territory, right? But like, you know, if your mom or your dad don't think we should go out on a Wednesday night, like, great.
That would drive me insane. I don't like that either.
Right. Like, you know, and I'm not.
Well, they can do what they want on a Wednesday.
Right. Like, you know, and it's like, you know, like my parents do it, right? They're like, well, you really think that that's a good idea or that was a good idea? And it's like, hindsight being 2020, no, it wasn't. But like, you gotta go through shit to learn.
Totally.
Right.
Thankfully, my parents have always been really good about that, like not butting in when they shouldn't.
Right.
And I think too, like even directly, like I will ask them sometimes, and they totally understand that concept. Like, well, I can tell you, but if I told you, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, you have to live it, you know. So, yeah, I've always kind of had that perspective too. But I mean, I am a person who loves to talk to their friends and work through stuff, and I think that's why I wanted to do the podcast because I genuinely enjoy that. But like I said, take it with a grain of salt because they, you know, they don't know everything, and even if you told someone, this is like an experience I've had, like even if you verbatim told someone what somebody said and did in a situation, it's like the little tones, all the other context leading up to it, like so many things that you can't really translate sometimes, that, and they add up. And so sometimes I would find myself being like, you know, oh, what happened? And you try to explain it and you're like, I can't even really explain it. Like, you know, because it's like some of that stuff, like you said, like it just happens between the two of you. So,
you know, it's funny. And talking about therapy, right? Like I was in one of my talk therapy sessions last year, and we were talking about a situation I had got myself into, and he's like, well, why did you do this? Right. And he goes, why do you think you did it this way? Like, why was this your reaction? And like, I broke it down for him, and he was like, why are you so self-aware of this? And I'm like, because I don't live in a I mean, sometimes I live in a fantasy world, but I don't live entirely in a fantasy world. Like, I know when I fuck up, right? And even when you're fucking up, you know, I know I'm fucking up. But it's like, sometimes you just can't, I don't want to say can't help it, but like, whatever the cause of it is brought you to that point that you don't feel like there's any other option.
Yeah, there's definitely that. There's also like for me, what happens a lot is like, or has happened a lot. I hopefully have started healing this part of myself. But like the song I told you about, Delusional or Mirage, like about being kind of not seeing red flags. I think sometimes like, especially I think women experience this a lot, is like your hope that things will work out can kind of override your better senses, if that makes sense. So like you may know that you're not making, maybe like not sure you're making the right choice, but you're just kind of like running on the hope that it's going to improve.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I like try to encourage myself and others now to be like, people are generally who they are. And although I think you can improve as a person, especially if you as a person are doing a lot of work and want to, that's great. But it has to be you or them that is doing that. You know,
Right.
it's not like something that's just going to happen on its own or something that's going to happen because you're pushing them to do it, you know? And so I don't remember how this connected to your original thing, but anyway.
Yeah, but I'm sure it does. It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
But like, even like, you know, you were talking about red flags, right? And there's red flags on both sides, right? And I'm going to ask from your perspective, but like when girls see red flags, right? Do they? And you kind of touched upon this maybe, but is there a level of like, these are the red flags, maybe I can fix it?
There's definitely that. I think also there are some things that, and I'll try to think of a specific example, but there's some things that like you're not sure if they're a red flag. So, okay, let's give an example. Like, someone might be like slow to open up, and you're not sure if they're just slow to open up or if they're emotionally avoidant. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, like,
Okay.
especially earlier on, I feel like you see some of these things and you're kind of playing games in your head, going like, is this just normal, like they're just a little slow to open up, or are they avoidant? Like, you know, there's a lot of examples I think like that where you're kind of questioning yourself in the beginning, and then as things get further down the line, you've become more attached. Now maybe you're further along in a relationship and you don't, it's kind of like the, what do they call it, the sunk time fallacy or sunk cost fallacy or whatever, where it's like, well, I've put this much time into it, I don't want to just throw it all away, you
Right.
know, but
Right.
then you end up wasting more time. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so I think that's something that happens a lot too, is you don't want to just throw your relationships away when something is not working, but at the same time you have to be realistic about whether it's something that's fixable or something that's probably going to continue unless the dynamic changed considerably,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. I think, you know, one of my biggest, I don't see it as a problem, but like, you know, when you're talking to somebody or getting to know somebody, whatever, right? Like I've learned to just kind of like, this is probably a bad habit, but like just tell my story. Like, here it is, take it or leave it. Like, because like I've had some shit go on, right? Like, it is what it is. We're all human, right? Learn from it. Hopefully have learned from it, and like we'll be better. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I see it. You know, and like some people are like, holy shit, like what is happening here, right?
Yeah, like why are you telling me this so early?
Right. And like for me, it's like, because like I'm not going to say I'm not ashamed or I'm ashamed of what has happened in my life, because I don't believe in that. I don't believe in regrets. Like, everything happens for a reason, right? Like, we all go through things. We all make decisions for a reason, right? We may not know what those are at the moment, but we will. You know, so for me, it's like, here it is. Take it or leave it. You know what I mean? And it's almost like it's almost like being too self-aware. Like,
Right.
it's for me, it's just easier that way. Like, you know, I'm gonna try, you know, they like to say trauma dump. Like, it's like, no, I'm just telling you my fucking story. Don't be an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, you know, oh, he trauma dumped on me and blah, blah. Like, first of all, get off your fucking get off your Facebook groups and get a life. You're fucking in your mid to late 30s. But anyway, I digress. But it's like, it's not. It's telling it's just telling the story. Like, it's
I don't want to say you're a red flag, and I'm not saying
No, I
that,
am.
but I'm
Total.
gonna tell.
I'm
I'm gonna tell.
I'm a
I'm gonna
I'm a
tell you a
goddamn
story.
circus, Aubrie.
No, like I will say one thing I've learned, and this is not really what you're saying. It's kind of different, but kind of related. Is like another kind of is it a red flag or not? I guess is just because someone is aware or self-aware doesn't mean that they are capable of sustaining a relationship. Does that make sense? So like
Ooh,
you can know what your problems are and still not be able to have not learned how to function in a relationship or
that's
how
true.
to sustain a relationship. So yeah, it's like self-awareness is the first step, but it's not necessarily the step to becoming actually emotionally available and learning how to function. And a lot of that has to do with like you can know all your own issues, and I'm pretty self-aware, but also, probably have some blind spots still.
Yeah,
But
I
point
mean,
being, like,
yeah,
I've been self-aware for quite some time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, I've clearly, like, I've been through breakups. Like, I'm not always choosing the right partner. I'm not always behaving perfectly in relationships. Point being, you can be self-aware, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're ready or capable of sustaining something.
that's true. That's true. Now, let me ask you this, right? While we're talking, I love this. This is the best. This is maybe the best podcast ever. Um, but like, you know how they, I I have a love hate relationship with the N word. Probably shouldn't have said it like that on this, but like with the word narcissist, right? Because I'm a big proponent of like we all are, right? We all have it. Like
Sounds
it's
like what it's something a narcissist would say.
right.
Just kidding.
But like like and like this is where I kind of don't buy that it's a real thing, and I know I'm gonna get I'll probably get a lot of backlash from you know people on the internet, but like the way some of that is described is just you know I don't know, it's just strange to me. Like I'm sure
Well,
I
like
don't
some
know.
of the other buzzwords we talked about earlier, like people have taken it and like run with it, kind of. You know what I
Right,
mean? So being a narcissist, like an actual narcissistic personality disorder, is a real thing, but it's like very extreme and pretty rare. So
right,
like, I think people can have what are considered like narcissistic traits.
right.
I think
But
really
like
the main thing is like, do you care about other people or do you only care about yourself? Like, is
right,
everything you're doing, like even being kind to someone, like a way to serve yourself? Or but I agree with you. It's like we are as human beings looking to like improve our own lives and live our own happiest
right,
lives. So yes, we are gonna, like, for instance, make the choice to be in a relationship with someone who makes us happy, but hopefully
right,
we also make them happy.
right.
So I see what you're saying. Like, I think it's something that can be taken out of context, used wrong, overused.
Yeah,
Um, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it is pretty rare. And I think that's
that's
like
fair.
a lot of things where people are like, he's a narcissist. Well, not every guy that doesn't like you is a narcissist.
Right, right. Not every relationship that fails is because one of you are right. One of you is a
Yeah.
narcissist. Like it's just like
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Like but like I do believe in the narcissistic traits. Like I think we all have them, right? And
Right.
it's you know, it, again, I think that's just human nature. I think a
You
lot
should
of
go take the psychopath test. Have you ever done that?
no, I'm afraid how that would come out. I'd probably be like,
I think it's like the dark triad or something like that. It's like narcissistic traits. I don't remember what the other two are, but I took it and was like, okay, that's a little higher than I'd like it to be.
yeah. But it's like,
But yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I think if you can self-reflect and go, you know what, I was an asshole in this situation, or I didn't live up to what I wish I was, I'll just be better next time, or hopefully I can be better next time. Like the way I approach things, I think a lot of people think that I'm just pushing it off or not caring or whatever. And I'm like, I do care, but it's like, I'm one of those people where it's like, something has happened. Here's the outcome. What do you want me to do about it now? Like, I can't go in the past and fix it. I can't, if I had a time machine, that'd be wonderful. All I can do is move forward. Right. And it's, in my situations, I have seen like, whether it's me or other people, it's like they want you to stay in the past, where it's like, well, it's kind of like when the dog pees on the carpet, right? And they want to put your nose in it all the time. And it's like that's not fair either. Like,
well, it's absolutely not healthy to keep bringing something old up over and over again. That's for
right.
sure. As long as you are trying to not do that again in the future, genuinely trying, not just
Right.
saying you're going to try.
Right.
I feel like I'm scolding you.
No, I a little bit. I'm sorry. Sorry, grown up. I'm sorry. I don't know. Like, it's crazy, because it's like, I feel like, and I'm sure you feel the same way, where it's like you feel like you've learned so much about yourself throughout the years, right? And something could go totally awry, and you really kind of like reflect, and you're like, wow, right? All I can, I've seen this thing over and over again, where it's like the best apology is like changed action or changed response or whatever it is, right? And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But like, how much changed behavior do you need for an apology? Like, what is that metric? Is it like, oh, you've changed for the last 5 years, so now you're sorry? Like,
I guess it depends on the situation, but
that's fair.
but I mean, a lot of this too is like, are you with the person who fits your needs and vice versa?
Sure.
So like, like this is where like love languages come in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is someone able to speak your love language? Because all day long, you could be, acts of service, for instance, is like doing stuff around the house or doing physical actions for people. And if that's not my love language, and you can do it all day long, and I'm not going to receive it as much as if if I'm words of affirmation. So you telling me things, so there's that comes into play too. And there's just like a compatibility thing.
Right.
But there's so many factors that it's like, it depends on the both of you and like what your dynamic is. But yeah, I think verbal apologies are necessary, but the worst is someone telling you that things are going to be different and then they're not.
Yeah, no, I get it. And trust me, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
It just like, but where's the line? I don't know. You know what I love about this?
What?
I like, we know each other through this realm, right? But like, this is the same conversation that I would have with friends of mine at the bar.
Yeah.
Like,
this is why I like doing this podcast, because as much as I want to say, hey guys, I have a new record out, this is way more fun to me than talking about that.
Like, trust me, but it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, like, this is my therapy now, right? Like,
totally.
It's nice to be able to, because people are going to listen to this and be like, wow, Jim's an asshole. And like, you're not necessarily right. You're not necessarily wrong. Like, there's,
Yeah.
But like, I'm one of those people, like, where I always want to know why something has happened, right? Like, I want to know what led to this. I want to know what led to that. What's that?
I said I very much relate. I'm a very curious person. I love to figure stuff out.
And, I, like it or not, like, I could tell you exactly why things have gone the way they do. Or for me,
Yeah.
I'm very, I trust me, I know why. And it's serious, and it is what it is. But like, when I have those reactions of like, I understand all this, but it is what it is, like, people get mad. Like, and it's like, what do you want me to do? Fucking carry this cross for the rest of my life when I know what I need to do? Like,
well, some people, like, that's like, I don't want to say the compatibility thing, but like, you do have to like be aware of, like, for instance, if someone told me like, this is what I am and like, take it or leave it. Well, if it's not something you like, then you don't take it.
Right. Right.
Like,
Well, and that's true too.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you don't sit there and go, well, you shouldn't be that way, and I'm going to make you a different way, which I am guilty of doing in the past, and have thankfully learned my lesson. Like, there's a certain amount of compromise that has to happen in a relationship, but like, you also have to be aware of like who the other person is, who you are, and at your core, is it going to be a struggle constantly for you guys to meet each other, or are you like naturally, you know, closer to the same level and wants and needs, and then the compromises you have to make are kind of normal, you know?
Right. Yeah. Right. You know, and that's yeah, because you know, I'm sure you do it, right? Where like you still, regardless of how aware you are, like there's still struggles every day. You know, like
Right.
there's nobody that's a worse critic of me than me. You know, like I can beat myself up just fine. I don't need anybody else to do it.
Right.
You know, but like, you know, you're talking about, you know, current ship, whatever, right? And like how much better it is, right? But like, even in that better, do you ever have moments of like, it am I better? Is this really better? Is, you know, like, should I be in this situation? Should I not be in this situation? Like, do you have those inner conflicts?
That's something I've improved on too, because I think as somebody with anxiety, there's actually, and this is, like I said, I don't think like it's important to label yourself, but this is something that people can look up if they struggle with that kind of questioning all the time, specifically called relationship OCD or relationship anxiety. Even if you don't have that, you can still go look it up and see like some of the tools that you can use if you're like questioning like that, because thankfully I'm a person who doesn't have a lot of like regrets. That doesn't mean I don't regret anything I've ever done, but I don't dwell on things going wrong, because I believe that we're all doing the best we can with the information we have at the time, you know. But
Yeah, yeah.
so
Say that again
I've
for the
gotten
people in
better.
the
Yeah, like I've gotten better at kind of accepting what's happening right now and not over questioning things. And I think that's an anxiety thing. So,
back.
yeah, I mean, like there are, like I said, there are struggles in relationships, and you know, when it's really bad, you're always going like you said, like, is this just mean it's not meant to be, or like, is this a normal struggle? But I think kind of for me, the metric of deciding that is like on a day-to-day basis, are things hard? Like they shouldn't be
Right.
hard every day, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And that's really, and if they're not and they're mostly good, then I think most things can be worked out, you know. But if there's like fundamental not flaws as far as like you as a person, but fundamental flaws in your dynamic and your compatibility, then that's something that's going to be an uphill battle that you don't need on top of all the other uphill battles of life that you have to go through. You know, you need someone who can support you through difficult things versus adding more difficult things onto your plate every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, there was something I was thinking about and I totally fucking forgot, and it's going to bother me now, but you know, there's times where it's like, even with like these episodes, right? Like a lot of what we've talked about tonight has been it's heavy shit, right? It's not, I don't think you should take it lightly. I don't think you should take it, you know, take it however you want to take it, right? But it's like, I've even found that like I used to talk about this stuff all the time and just talk about it like willy-nilly with whoever wanted to listen, right? But now it's like you know, you don't care what I've gone through, and that's fine. You know, I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in general, right? And you know, you want to take something I said and spin it a certain way or make it relatable to you or whatever, like that's on you. Like I've always been that person where it's like, I want to figure this out, right? Like I want to figure out why these things are happening or why I'm like this or whatever, right? And it's nice to just talk and speak out loud and try to bounce something off somebody else who's been through life, right? It doesn't have to be similar situations at all. It's just you go through life, you make mistakes, hopefully you learn from them, and you just keep going. You know, and I know it sounds so simple, right? Because in reality, it probably is, but it's also hard too. It's hard to just keep going.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a skill that we have to work on, and a big part of that is mindset. I think so much of everything we do is mindset. You know, like you can have two people that are having
Yeah.
the exact same issues, and somebody can, barely be able to handle it, and somebody else is like thriving. So I think a lot of it is like perspective and mindset. And also experience helps you
Yeah.
change your mindset, like it's like when you're younger and something bad happens to you, you think it's the end of the world. And then when you've gone through it 10 more times, now you're like, I've lived through this 10 times, So I think that that's something that can happen with relationships too. And that's why a lot of our like younger relationships are so intense. And then you get older and you're learning how to deal with stuff, hopefully better. So yeah, I don't know. Like you said, just keep going.
Yeah. You know, as I'm sitting here and saying all this, now I'm starting to question whether it's just how much of this shit in my life I have dealt with or haven't dealt with. And like, am I just running from it all on a constant basis so that I think that I'm,
I've caused you to have an existential crisis.
ah,
This is why you guys should all go
damn,
listen to my podcast. It will help you do the inner work and reflection you need. Just kidding.
you know, Dr. Sellers has got it for us. So
that's awesome.
All right. So when does this album come out and we're all gonna cry and fucking contemplate life over? Because now I'm gonna tell you right 20th. Now, even though I think I've already listened to it, but I'm not listening to it again now after this.
Oh, great. March 20th. It won't just make you cry. So, you can cry to it, but
I'm probably gonna. March 20th. So as we're talking, that's next Friday.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to put out a lot of episodes in 1 week.
That's put out you?
Yeah. Because at the beginning of the year, I said to myself, I'm only going to do 1 episode a week. I don't care how backlogged I am. And then like, I'm looking at it and I was like, well, one person was supposed to go 2 weeks ago, but you're my friend. So you're going to go on Monday.
Yeah. You know what? Push them later. Just push them later.
I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to. I'm looking at my notes right here, right? I did an interview with somebody that probably should have come out a month ago at this point.
Oh, no.
Not even close to being done. Not even close to coming out. It's not happening.
Well, I give you permission to put this out whenever you want, but the record comes out next week.
On Monday.
Okay, great.
I don't care. Like, there's a few here that I have to put out on certain times, right?
Yeah.
But the rest of it, fucking, it's my show. I'll do what I want.
Exactly. That's the benefit of being the boss.
But like, it sucks because like I have 1 episode that should have come out the week of my birthday, but Trudy Oak Revival called and was like, "Hey, we want to be on the podcast." Like, so obviously they had to get bumped, right? But like now it's like they talked about stuff that was going on that week, and I'm like,
"Oops."
Like, sorry, bud. Like, it's not intentional. No. Like, the conversation was fucking awesome. You know what I mean? But
everything's meant to happen when it happens. Just tell them that when they come back at you, just say, you know what, this was the way it was meant to happen.
Right. Like I got the call. I'll just be like, Aubrie was like, Jim, I hope you dance, and so I had to throw it in there. I had to.
Okay.
You know what? In all seriousness, since we, it's funny because it's like you have like a PR team and shit now. Like the last time we talked, I don't even think you had that. Like,
yeah, I mean that's for the record release. I just have them around the record release, but they're awesome.
Yeah, and it's like, it was so funny because like I think I told you, I think I shot you a text about it, and they were like, well, we know she was on in the summertime and it was close, and I was like, I don't give a shit. I'll come on once a month if she wanted to.
Yay!
Not if we're
Thank
going to be
you.
talking about this shit though all the time. I can't do it.
Okay.
I'm mentally exhausted. Listen,
We'll come up with something else.
I planned on taking a shower. Now I'm going to shower and cry. It's going to be great.
Oh no.
I'm going to put your record on and listen to it and just bawl my eyes out. Fine. We're fine. We're all fine.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. But, and can I end by saying this from my perspective, and then you can say whatever the hell you want, because this is really your episode. I know we talked about a lot of heavy shit tonight, and that's not lost on me, right? And if I came out as not taking it seriously or a joke, but that's just me. That's how I deal with things, right? But I think it's important that people know that if they are feeling certain ways, like there's plenty of people to reach out to, like, and us included.
Yeah.
Like I will stop whatever I'm doing if somebody needs help, because I've been in dark places, and it's tough. It's tough when you don't think there's anybody else. And the reality is like, I think the majority of people are in the same boat.
Well, that's why like music is so universal, even when you feel like you're writing these songs that are super personal to you.
Yeah.
And, music can be healing, but like you said, if you genuinely are in a dark place, there are definitely resources for you to, I know from firsthand experience, feel better, get better.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's mental health is serious, right? And it doesn't, we're getting better at it, but it doesn't get the spotlight it should.
Right, but it's also okay to joke, because joking is a great way to lift your spirits.
Yeah. Listen, I know I'm fucked, right? But like, if I don't laugh about it, I'll just get sad. And that's,
I'm a huge fan of dark humor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I have some group chats with some buddies, and it's like, if our phones were ever to get subpoenaed, we'd be going away. That's for sure.
Totally.
But I can't thank you enough for hanging out again.
Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure to chat and shoot the breeze. Even if we are talking about something serious and laughing about it at the same time for an hour.
Exactly. That's like my everyday. I love to talk about serious stuff and laugh about it.
Right. Like, it's kind of like when people die, that's the most awkward, where it's like, oh, so and so died. I was like, well, I guess it was their time to go. Like, what do you want me to say? Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so the record comes out on the 20th, which will be this Friday as this is released.
Yes, and podcasts come out every other Wednesday.
So hold on. You talked about your podcast. So it's been out already. This is how awful I am at keeping track of what people are doing.
Yeah, there's a few episodes out.
Are you playing the songs that you're kind of talking about as you have gone?
So, like I'll talk about the relationship subject. I don't talk about the music. I'll talk about the subject during the podcast, and then I'll play the song at the end of the podcast so that people can hear the song that like inspired the podcast episode. Yeah.
And how long are the episodes?
They're about 20 to 30 minutes. They're pretty short.
Is it just audio, or are you doing video?
It's just audio.
Yeah.
It's just audio. Yeah.
So you can just kind of...
It's my chance to like sit on the bed and look like a gremlin. Yeah.
Oh, Aubrie, you crack me up. Well, I don't know the next time you're up here, but next time you are, let us know, and hopefully you don't run to the bus next time and like hang out a little bit.
You mean get rest that I need?
You don't need that. That's for no, but I get it. I totally get it. And you know what? I thank you for taking the time and taking a picture and shooting the shit for a few minutes.
Absolutely.
All the crazy, it was really cool.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you again.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Right, bye. Well, there you have it, everybody. Our conversation with Aubrie Sellers. I don't think we've ever done the same person so close together before. And I'm not upset because Aubrey could come on this show fucking weekly if she wanted to shoot the breeze. Just absolutely adore this young lady. She's killing it, and she's so sweet. She's just so nice and genuine. Like there isn't enough positive words for Aubrie Sellers, but here we are. So her mom's Leanne Womack. I had to. Sorry, Aubrey. I have to name drop. I have to name drop. Maybe it helps the algorithm, but yeah. So anyway, tomorrow we have another episode for you. Travis Bolt will be here. It's funny, not funny like aha, but funny like interesting. This one's all about mental health, right? And tomorrow is all about Tourette's awareness. It's strange how we're talking about some heavy topics in these episodes this week. I'm not upset by it. I think it's important. And that's really it, guys. So thanks for being here. Hope to see you tomorrow. And then next week, I don't know if we're going to do a double shot again, but we're kind of squeezing ourselves thin with episodes. We have a lot to get out, and I need to get them out. So, yeah. With that being said, yeah, I'm probably going to do 2 next week's too. And now I'm just talking to myself. So, anyway, have a great week. Be good to each other. We'll see you next Monday. We'll see you tomorrow, too. So, until tomorrow, keep those boots on the ground, the whiskey in the glass, guys. Cheers. Be good to each other. We'll see you tomorrow.